Alrighty, well, I'm here with my management professor, Dr. Quade, and he's been my favorite professor so far at Baylor. I've only been here for a year, but I think that'll probably remain going forward. Loved his class, loved everything that I've learned, and really enjoyed talking with him about this whole concept of millennials. So, Dr. Quade, if you could kind of tell me your opinion of millennials, maybe a positive and a negative thing you've noticed from your time dealing with my generation.
Okay. Well, first, I just appreciate you having me on your YouTube channel and your show that you've got going. I've been impressed with a couple of videos you've posted so far, and look forward to the interviews that you've got in the future. As far as your question, positives and negatives about millennials, when you kind of give me the questions, I was thinking about this, and I guess I'll start with the negative so we can end on the positive.
Okay.
I think the easy way to go, and the way a lot of people go on the negative, is to say, well, millennials are too entitled and they feel like they deserve, they deserve stuff without working for it. And so, while I somewhat believe that to be true for some millennials, I feel like that's the easy way out, and something that I'm seeing more often, and something that maybe in some ways is equally disturbing, or just kind of something that I would encourage millennials to think about as they approach things, is I think millennials are so focused on the end goal that they have that they don't enjoy the process. That it's so much about, I just want to get to that end state. I just want to get to that objective that I have on the horizon. And so they're so focused on that they lose sight of the fact that there's this process, there's this journey that you go through on the way to that's full of growth and full of adventure and opportunity and learning and disappointment. And so I would caution millennials to think about, hey, am I missing out on the journey, on my pursuit of this objective? Because as soon as you hit that objective, you're just going to start looking for the next objective. And so figuring out how to understand and enjoy the journey and the process there would be something that I would like to see millennials kind of grow in ways. Positive I see in millennials is just a passion that is in a lot of ways unparalleled by other generations. I feel like, millennials are super passionate about, certainly like social justice issues and, just different things that I feel like is a real benefit to them, especially when they get into the workforce, that there is something about them. And this kind of goes to the negative I see as well, that they are so outcome focused and so performance focused. And so, it's been ingrained in them, especially in America, to be excellent and to seek, high levels of performance. And so because of that, I think they're really driven and really motivated and really passionate about being successful. And so I think there's a lot that organizations will be able to benefit from millennials when they're in the workforce, given that passion that they have to be great, and not just to be great for their own benefit, but also to be great for the benefit of others. I think that's something that's unique to millennials too. That's really positive, is that I don't think that the entitlement that we want to throw at millennials is all about selfishness. I think there's a goodness in millennials and a desire to help others that is really encouraging for me as a professor to see in my students a desire to help other people. Specifically with jobs and careers that millennials are choosing, they're wanting to do things where they can help others. So I see that as a positive.
Yeah, well, just sitting here, that's pretty convicting, especially about the whole end goal thing, because that is definitely true for myself. And so I think that's a pretty accurate description of millennials.
Yeah.
Which I think that's a good thing. If I'm convicted about it, I guess that means that that's something I need to work on. Okay, but the first question I want to ask kind of has to do with, from your experience, kind of a broad question, and I know it can go a lot of ways, but what would you say, if you were a manager, would be the best way to manage this generation of millennials? Like, how do you manage them most effectively?
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing in my classroom, and I kind of see myself as a boss to 40 employees at a time in my classes, and so I don't think, I certainly think some of their behaviors, some of my students' behaviors would be different in the workplace than it would be in the classroom, certainly. But I think there are some characteristics that will translate to the workplace. And so one of the things I think that is most important for millennials is to give them a sense of autonomy and a sense of freedom to do the work in the way that they feel is best. And that word autonomy gets thrown around a lot. And certainly, when young people come onto the workforce, there's going to be a level of training that's needed. And so that degree of autonomy can only go so far. And I think we earn the right to have autonomy and to have some freedom and some discretion in how we do things. But I think the more that organizations can give millennials this sense of, hey, we trust you, and we want to empower you to do the work in a way that you feel most equipped and most capable, and in a way that will really kind of stir that passion again that you have inside of you to kind of do this work. I think that's when we'll see the best results out of millennials. Kind of with that, and something that Austin, you and I've talked about in the office before, and I'm ripping this off of someone who didn't quote the person they got it from, but someone that I sat under at Oklahoma State at my church talked about how a person that he used to work with kind of had this motto of grace, trust, and freedom from a managerial standpoint. And I think there's something really powerful in that for the millennial generation, the idea that you're going to make mistakes. And so obviously within the bounds of reason, like we have grace for those mistakes, and we even encourage millennials to take risks in the workplace and know that grace would be offered, again, within reason. But certainly I think millennials want to be trusted. They want people to look at them as capable. And so, I think that element of trust is really important. And then the freedom is kind of what I was talking about with the autonomy, just that the ability to kind of do the work in a way that is unique to you and not. I think one thing that millennials will really steer away from is some of the job experiences I've had where it's been very monotonous and very much by the book, and you don't have a lot of freedom or discretion to do things differently. I think millennials are much more interested in kind of more entrepreneurial endeavors where they get to kind of put some of who they are into the work. So
my next question, kind of bouncing off that, getting your opinion on this. How do you as a manager create an environment that has a low turnover? What I mean is I've kind of done some reading, and it seems that one, kind of like what you said, a lot of millennials want to work for themselves, start their own companies. And if they are at a company, a lot of them are showing that they want to leave that job within 3 years. So how do you as a manager create an environment that millennials want to be a part of and want to stay a part of, if that's even possible at all?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's possible. I think when we throw around the word millennial, it's anytime we're labeling generations, I feel like it can be misconstrued, because there's certainly an element of a generation that is not characterized by some of these things. And so I certainly think there's an element of the millennial generation that is interested potentially in having a career where they don't hop around but certainly that probably does tend to be the norm, and does tend to be what the statistics are showing us, is that's what we're more likely to see out of people in your generation, is to come out of college and maybe have 4, 5, 6 jobs in the first 10 or 12 years out of college. And so I think one of the things organizations really need to focus on in trying to retain young talent is to really help them see what their growth opportunities are in that company. I think from my experiences in the workforce and some experiences of my friends who are about my age, mid-30s, is they've gone into organizations and they've not really had it been real clear to them what their growth opportunities would be. And so you're kind of left to flounder and say, well, I feel like I'm working hard and I'm getting good feedback. Like I'm being told that I'm doing a good job, but I still don't really understand like what would be the next step for me here. And oftentimes, especially if you get into more hierarchical organizations, or really any organization of much size at all, there's not as much room for that entrepreneurial spirit to take place. And so if you find yourself in an organization like that, and the organization isn't doing a lot to really kind of indicate to you, hey, this is what we see in you, and this is where we think you can go, and this is where we'd like to see you go next, and here's how we want to develop you or train you to get you to that point. Like when you're not having those conversations with your employees who are super motivated, again, super passionate, and very high achievers, focused on high performance. I mean, I think you're missing the boat there, and you basically end up, kind of almost forcing their hand a little bit to say, well, I'm going to look elsewhere. And so I often wonder if these trends that we're seeing are not as much a function of millennials or these younger generations wanting to job hop so much as maybe there's a lack of organizations doing their part to help millennials see what their progression could be in these organizations. I mean, if you look at some of the top organizations that we read about these days, if you look at a company like Google, I mean, and certainly this is one that a lot of us have read a lot about, like you see in them a very entrepreneurial type of organization where employees have the opportunity to not only have autonomy, but really kind of create a career for themselves where they have lots of different opportunities, and it's more open-ended. So it's not as much just like, well, I come to my cubicle every day and I kind of know that this is the next progression, whether anybody's telling me about it or not. Like it's kind of, you have lots of opportunities, and it's much more malleable in terms of what you could end up doing. And so I think the more that companies could adopt those kinds of models, I wonder if we might see younger generations go back to that place where, hey, we do want to be at a company for 15, 20 years because we like the opportunities we've had here. So I'm interested to see as I do this longer and hopefully hear from students who have been out in the workforce for 5, 10, 15 years, if they come back to campus or shoot me an email, I'm interested to hear their experiences to kind of learn more about this through their experiences.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting opinion. So as we get ready to sign off, do you have any last thoughts that you want to impart or bits of wisdom that
let's see. I think it kind of goes back to kind of what I was highlighting as a negative, and one thing that I would caution millennials with, and really almost just not just millennials, but our entire kind of our culture that has so emphasized high performance and high achievement, that we are so outcome driven that we fail to miss out, or not fail to miss out. We do miss out on the journey along the way.
Thanks, Dr. Quade, for taking the time out of your day to sit down and have an interview with me. Really appreciate it, and
No
look forward to maybe doing another one. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely, Austin. I'm glad to have you in class. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and I look forward to staying in touch and seeing kind of where this YouTube show goes. Good stuff.